Well, hi everybody. Welcome to your first introduction to After Effects for this class. This tutorial is going to cover After Effects for absolute beginners. If you do have some experience in After Effects already, this might be a little bit of a refresher, possibly a little redundant for you, but this will help everybody get on the same page for the course. So today what we are going to do is we're going to take a look at the interface in After Effects, and then we are just going to do some basic animation commands in the software. So you do need to have Adobe After Effects installed clearly before we start this tutorial. So I have Adobe After Effects on my dock here, but you can also navigate to that and all your Adobe applications if you're not already familiar. Here, well, I guess I'm in my I'm on a Mac, so I'm looking at applications through Finder. And if you're on a PC, you can go to that start button and search for After Effects and launch it from there. So if you have any problems, you're not seeing it, you're having problems installing it, you're having problems starting After Effects, make sure you reach out. I can definitely address certain issues. Sometimes they have to be escalated to Adobe, but make sure you let me know if you're having any issues. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and launch After Effects. While that's happening, I'm gonna make my mouse size very large so that you can see where my mouse is all the time. I think that would be helpful. Okay, so now you can see I have a cartoonishly large pointer mouse control for you all. So hopefully that's helpful. I might be a little bit clumsy with it. So you're gonna have two dialog windows pop up most likely. The first is this one, new project or open project. And then behind it, what you see is the After Effects interface for a project behind that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start a new project. So go ahead and click that. And you're going to see the interface here. We're going to kind of take a look around the interface. So over here on the left, you have something called project. This is where you're going to have your different text, and we're going to work with solid layers today. So as we add things into our project, you're going to see those types of things pop up over here, and compositions as well. We're going to work with a couple of different compositions. Here is something called effect controls, which nothing appears here until we start working with animation. So we'll come back to both of these windows. Down here you have what's called a render queue tab. There's nothing in our render queue right now. And then this is where your compositions will show up. We haven't made one yet, so we'll take a look at that in just a moment. And then here is our canvas window where you're actually going to be looking at your animation. Over on the other side, you have some basic panels that pop up. Now let me see if I am in the standard graphics workspace. I am. If your panels look weird or things aren't in the right spot, you can reset. You can go to workspace and I would just choose standard for the beginning. Here, there are other types of workspaces that you can choose, and then you can also edit the workspace and save a preferred workspace, but for now, let's just stick to the basics. So over here you have effects and presets, and then you have some things that you can edit with character. If you don't see character open and you reset the workspace, another way to get things, get access to things that I'm doing or that we're going over. So I'm going to close this panel and I'm just going to say like, oh, Carmen's talking about the character panel and I don't see the character panel. I don't know what to do. You can always access everything up here from the top menu if you go to Window And then I will go to character here. It's unchecked. I'm going to go ahead and click that. And you're going to see character pops back up. The other thing to know about all of these panels and windows in After Effects is I can take character, and if I click down and drag it, I can drag it into other areas. So like I could bring character up here, for example, if that works better for me. Or if I want all of my, like I don't want brushes and paint down here on a separate area, I can drag those up and combine those. You can also drag off to the side. Here, let me do that again so that you can, I'll do that in a way that you can see it. It's not really wanting me to redock that. Okay, hang on. So if I minimize, that's not what I wanted to do. I'll just drag from the corner, old school. So if you take any of these and you drag them off to the side, you can actually get a floating window and you can move that anywhere that you want. So now I have character and brushes kind of floating off to the side. Now let's say I want to go ahead and reset it to standard. I can go to workspace here and I should be able to, let's see, let's reset standard. Okay, so if we go to workspace, reset standard to saved layout, it's going to put everything back in place. And I see that I do have, I don't have the character panel and all of these things, but we can always go in and open those as needed. So I would say no matter what, if you're not, I would just reset standard to save layout here, and then we'll go forward. You can see here too that there's different tabs up here, and standard is chosen up here in this top tab above your canvas area window. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and expand this again. And so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create our composition. And when you create a composition, this is where you tell After Effects how big you want your canvas size to be, which is basically like the size of the video or GIF or whatever it is that you're making. And then you're going to tell After Effects how long you want it to be. So let's go ahead and we're going to click New Composition. If you're not seeing this for some reason, you can also go to Composition in the top and go to New Composition. So we're going to go ahead and choose that. This composition I'm going to name because we are going to use your name or a nickname for this first exercise. For the width and height, I want you to make it 600 pixels by 600 pixels because we're going to actually export animated GIFs for this tutorial. We will also be using an application called Media Encoder. So if you don't have Media Encoder installed, you'll want to just stop and install that quick. It's not a big piece of software, but we will need it too. So it's this one right here, ME Media Encoder. We will need to have that installed to export the animated GIFs towards the end of this tutorial. Okay, so 600 by 600 pixels. Don't worry about pixel aspect ratio. The frame rate, we're going to do 24, so I would set that to 24 if it's set to something else. And then we're going to skip resolution and start time code, and the duration we are going to change. So we want that duration to be 5 seconds. So this gets a little confusing in After Effects. The way that this works is that the first two zeros are frames, seconds, minutes, and then hour is the last zero here. We'll never ever create anything that's an hour long. We'll never even create anything probably longer than a minute or so. But anyways, and then you can leave the background color black. So 600, the important things here are 600 by 600 pixels, 24 frames per second, and then the duration of 5 seconds. So go ahead and hit OK. What you are probably going to see is a black box like this. And let's just go over a couple of things. So this window looks pretty small right now. There's a couple different ways that you can change the size of it. You can either scroll in and scroll out. I believe Command minus and plus, yep, will back you in and out of this. And then there's also in the very right left bottom, there's a size options here. And if you hit fit, it's actually going to just fit it to the window. So this drop down menu right here is the size that you're seeing your canvas at. And again, this is our 600 by 600 pixels that we chose. The next drop down menu over is how clearly you're seeing your canvas back to you. And so we'll go over this more a little bit later, but right now I would set it to full if it's not on full. And I'll explain a little bit more about that a little bit later. So there's a whole bunch of other things down here, and we're not going to worry about any of these except for the toggle transparency grid. So sometimes you're going to make things that need to have transparency so that they can get composited over something else. We're not really going to get into that today, but you can toggle this. Those of you that are familiar with working with transparency and transparent backgrounds and ping files and things like that will recognize this, this type of checkered gray grid in the background. But we can turn that to black for now. We're really not going to worry about transparency today. Okay, so now we're ready to begin adding some assets to this first composition. So this is called name. And before we get started, it's probably a good idea to actually save our project. So let's go ahead and save this. We're going to go to File, Save As, and I will call this Intro Tutorial, Intro Toots. So I'll just go ahead and if you have a folder that you are saving everything into for this class, that would be a good place. You can make like a tutorial folder if you would like. You could also just save this project to your desktop for now if you would like. And what that's going to look like when it saves is you're going to see a file like this. It says AE. It's a .aep, which stands for After Effects Project Intro Tutorial. So you're going to be able to save this as you go along. And that's cool because then you can save and walk away from the tutorial if you need to, pick it back up another time, whatever the case. All right, so now that we have our project saved, we're going to go ahead and get started on the first task. So the first thing we want to do is I want to create a solid background layer, and you're going to choose whatever color you would like. So we're going to go to Layer, New, and we're going to go to Solid, and you're going to see this pop up. You can name your layer here if you want. So maybe I'll just go ahead and name it Background, or you don't have to name it. It's up to you. We're going to leave everything else as a default here, but we will go ahead and choose a color. So you can use your color swatch libraries like you can in other applications in the Adobe Suite in After Effects, but for today, we're just going to keep it super simple. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick a really light blue for my background, and I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to hit OK. So now we have this nice light blue background. in After Effects. So that's all good. And I'm going to back my canvas out a little bit because I kind of like to work on it a little bit smaller. And you will all see why here in a little bit, because we're going to work with some text that starts off of the canvas and then animates into the canvas and the frame that we're working with. All right, so perfect. We've got a background layer. That's good. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create some text. So I want you to go ahead and click. There's a text box tool up here. You're going to click on that. And when you hover over the canvas window, you're going to see your text option pop up here. And you are just going to type your name. All right, so I typed Carmen. That's all great. I do want to change things up a little bit. So what you should notice is that over in this panel, your text box options panel should automatically pop up when you work with text. The font is Noteworthy. And the first thing you might notice is that your font is actually very small. So you can come to this text size slider right here. And if you hover over it, you should be able to bring your text up in size. Most likely yours is formatted to the left. I like to center mine here. That's totally up to you. And then, so once you kind of get it to be the size that you want, you can look at the different fonts because you can see them really well. And sometimes the font that you choose will change of your text. So you might have to adjust it and make it a little bigger, make it a little smaller, just kind of depending. So here I have some different font choices. I'm going to go with something a little bit more bold and dark. The bold font that I chose here, it's a decorative font, made my name a lot bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink that down. And then I'm going to make this a different color. I'm going to go with more of like let's go with like a purple, I guess. Okay, so now I have my text set to the size that I want to have it. Up in my tools panel, I'm going to go over to the left and I'm going to grab that selection tool. I can also hit the V key as a quick way of getting there. If you hover over any of these tools, you're going to see that the hotkeys for them pops up. So for text, it's Command T. All right, so here is my name, and we're ready to go ahead and apply some different things to it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to apply a animation command to my name and have it scroll from one side of this canvas off the canvas to the other side off the canvas. So we're going to have it just scroll by, and we can command things to animate by using what are known as keyframes. And basically what keyframes do is it gives a particular asset a point A and a point B, and you tell it to start at a certain point, part A, and end at a certain point for part B. So what we'll do is if you go down here to the layers panel, I don't know why all of these are, I have a whole bunch of these that say none that are open. If I go down here to the layers panel and I toggle down the transform, I've got some really basic commands here that I can choose from. And the first one, the second one that we're going to use for this is position. So what happens is if I toggle on this time clock, you're going to see that it drops a little diamond right here, and that's a keyframe. And so that's point A. And so animation can get really complicated and complex, and there can be hundreds of keyframes on a particular line, but basic animation just needs a point A and a point B. So I'm actually going to delete this because I want this Carmen to start at a different part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Carmen and I'm going to drag it off the canvas. So go ahead and take your name and do the same. And this is actually where I want my name to start. So the other thing I'm going to make sure, this is your scrubbing tool on the timeline here. Remember, we have a 5-second timeline. I'm going to make sure that this is at the beginning. It's at the beginning by default, so yours is probably there. We're going to toggle on the animation time clock for position. And then let's drag the scrubbing tool down to maybe like the 3rd second, not all the way to the end. And now what I'm going to do, make sure that you have your selection tool selected. I'm going to click and drag this all the way across off the canvas, and you're going to see that we have an animation path. Now, something that's kind of cool is if I want to make sure that this is going across very straight, if I hold down the Shift key, you're going to see that it snuggles it in to that position, and it's really kind of hard to move it out, but it'll snap. It'll snap into being straight. Okay? So now we have a point A and a point B, and that is the very basis for animation. All right, so there we have your name animated across the screen. So what we could do is hit the space bar, and that's going to play that back to us. And we can get a little bit of a sense of the motion. Now, out of all of the applications in the Adobe Suite, After Effects is going to eat your processing power more than almost anything. It is a wonderful tool, but animation is very taxing on a CPU and processing. And so it's going, if anything's going to crash your computer, it's going to be After Effects. So you want to make sure that you have plenty of room on your computer, like at least 50 gigabytes of free space, so that it has enough room to process. If you have any issues with that, reach out to me. I have some tricks to get that working a little bit better for you. So one thing that I'm actually noticing right off the bat is I've animated my name in an actually quite dangerous spot for a composition, especially a composition with animation. My asset is far too close to the top of my screen. So we're actually going to turn something on that's going to help us with that. So there's a little grid down here that has lines through it, and if you hover over it, it's a little bit hard because my mouse is so big right now. It says, what does it say? It's basically a title action safe grid that will help you. So we're going to go ahead and click that on. And so if you choose title action safe, you're going to see this grid pop up. And what this is a guide for you so that you're not falling out of the main focal area of your composition. And so what this is telling me is that I need to move Carmen down to where the M is probably touching the top of this inner square is going to be my biggest safe area. And I really don't want any movement going out of this first square. The secondary square is kind of a like, well, if it kind of veers off, you know, that's kind of okay. So now that I have this on, and you can just toggle it on and off like this. Now that I have this on, I need to make some adjustments to what I'm doing on the screen here. So I am going to go ahead and do that. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to actually adjust the size of my name. Now that I have my title safe off, I'm really realizing that my text is too big. So if I go up here and choose my text tool, we're going to highlight the text, and I'm going to go ahead and shrink that down until it's more of that size for the safe area. Okay, then I'm going to go back to my selection tool, and the next thing I need to do is I need to drop down where my name is floating across the screen. So what you can do is if you actually just come and hover over this, this little box, this anchor point, or where the keyframe is sitting, you can just take it and drag it down to where that's sitting nicely. And then this, if I hold the shift key down, well, it's not really working so well for this. It's not really wanting to click it into place. That's okay. Anyways, you can see that brings it down, and you can kind of adjust it. So let's just adjust it for right about here. So that it's just sitting right underneath the title safe at the top. And then just kind of adjust it until it's about as straight as you can get it. We don't need to worry about perfection right now since we're just practicing. So I'm kind of noticing that this side is a little bit low, so we're just further adjusting that. So now even though I'm coming in and out of the screen, you know, my size is fitting a little bit better for the title safe area. You know, like I said, any action that really happens outside of this, you're thinking, you know, it could potentially get clipped off. Your viewer's not really going to see anything in this outer area. So, okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and save the project. I'm going to go ahead and end the first part of the tutorial here because we're in at about 25 minutes. And so, yeah, go ahead and just save your project. You can go to File, Save. You can hit Command S. And I will see you in the next video, and we'll do just a few more things. Okay? All right. Bye.